Hello there, today I'm going to be working on this original acrylic pour, and the pour was made using some of Pebeo's pouring medium mixed with various colours, and I liked it, but I wasn't sure, so I decided I'm going to add something to it. I had a sit and a look and couldn't quite decide what it was, but I decided in the end that it was going to be a leopard on a tree emerging through this pour. So the first thing I'm doing here is adding some texture mediums. I'm just putting it on with a palette knife, top and bottom, but basically I want this to give me texture on the branch that she's laying on, and just to break up the picture so it's not quite so smooth. I'm going to need to allow this to dry probably for 40 minutes or so after I've put this on. It's not hugely thick, but I just want to make sure it's dry before I carry on. You can just see some faint lines where I've drawn something in. And I'm going to be using these Colorex watercolour inks. They are superbly transparent and beautifully rich in colour. And they come with this pipette, so I'm just putting them down and using a brush to smudge them around a little bit. I just wanted to get extra colour onto the canvas before I started. I'm just dragging it around from where I've dripped it. This obviously is a beautiful, beautiful, bright, vibrant yellow. Now the next one I'm using here is a natural yellow. It's one I've got. I was asked to test some different colours out, and I'm not sure if this one ever went to market, but I absolutely adore these natural colours. I think they're lovely and gentle. They add a proper warmth to it. The next one I'm putting in is a natural orange. It looks quite brown on the screen, but it is actually a really beautiful soft orange. And that's blending in. The yellow is still wet, so it's blending in with that to a certain extent. And at this stage I probably will leave some dribbles running down, but I'm not quite sure how and when, and whether I smudge this first and then add some dribbles over the top. I'm just softening down the colour slightly and spreading it around. Next one I've got is this brown. They go quite a long way, these do. The reference that I'm using here is one that I've got from Pixabay, and I'll put a link to it in the notes. But I thank all those who put something into Pixabay. It allows us to have references when we don't always have them. I'm painting this in with this ink, beautiful rich colours, and I'm just again positioning where everything's going to be on the canvas. Sort of negative painting behind it really, just to make the leopard that I'm going to paint stand out. And where this brown is going over that texture medium, it's kind of crinkling and wrinkling into that surface, which is beautiful. I'm just softening that edge in. I don't want it to be too hard as yet. Things might move, you never know, so I just want to keep this soft at the minute, and I'll gradually refine it as I work into the painting. And this is a brighter orange. How lovely is that? And they are so beautifully transparent, so I don't lose that original painting. I'm just coming in a little closer, and I'm starting to pick up some acrylic paint now. So the original pour was acrylic, then I was using the watercolour inks, and now I'm back to acrylic. Just starting to shape the tip of the nose. Just bringing into that muzzle, just getting some light onto there. It's just slowly pushing the shape, moulding, defining. Coming in with some shadows now, and the shadow colour I'm using here is quite a purpley colour because of the purple that was in the original pour. I wanted to have the shadows quite purpley, so this would have been ultramarine and umber, but with a touch of a quinacridone magenta in there as well. And you can start to see some of the texture showing on the bark where I put that texture medium down. More scratching. I'm starting to use shadows, so I'm just putting in lights and darks. I tend to do this, a little bit of shadow, and then I come back in with a bit more light, and then I come back in with a bit more shadow, and then I come back in with a bit more light. So though I'm using more colour here, more highlights and more shadows, again I'm trying not to, I'm using the paint in quite thinly, quite transparent layers, because I really don't want to lose all of that texture that I had underneath from the original pour. Scratching some more texture in. Quite a ghostly image at the minute, isn't it? It will come to life. Again, putting some white for that fur on the tip of the paw, just to make it stand out against that background. So extending that paw, I'm just starting to bring that limb into focus. Now coming back in, I've got a smaller brush here and I'm looking at adding a lot more detail actually, so it's really bringing the detail to life and starting to shape. So I've got everything roughed in, everything is where I need it to be, more or less. But now it's adding that texture and that detail. Always adding texture, I do love a good scratch. lots of little tweaks going on here. It looks like I'm not doing a great deal, but there's lots of little bits of balancing, checking shapes, checking sizes, angles, all of that. Starting to add a few shadows and just tweaking that shaping. I wanted to do some redefining here, so I've got it's actually a charcoal pencil, so I don't mind if that smudges a little bit into the work, but it's a charcoal pencil. I just find them easier to use than charcoal sticks. And again, just redefining, reshaping, adding some shadows, adding some dark. Really start to get some depth showing on this now. I do quite like the charcoal mark. It's quite a nice loose rough mark, particularly on the canvas with the paint on it as well. So having drawn that in, it's a bit of push and pull, so I'm coming back in with some more white just to lift certain areas. I realised at this point I needed to just move a couple of little parts of this, so it was balancing the shape of this face here. And the chin certainly needed to move just a little bit. That's a bit better. Happier with that. Mark that so I could see it. And we can shape and shade it and worry about the rest of it in a little bit. No, it's always hard to resist putting the eyes in because the eyes really do bring something like this to life, but I needed to get it to a point where I was happy with all of the drawing of it, that I wasn't going too over the top with putting too much detail in, and I didn't want to lose that underlying texture. So I've just started, and I will put more into the eyes in a minute, and just negative painting behind the head, because I know that ear is going to be light on that top side, so I just need it to show up against something really. I'm going to add a little bit more to the background, to the tree where this beautiful creature is sitting. However, I'm not sure how much I'm going to put in, so we'll see. We'll see. these beautiful, beautiful markings on the forehead. I feel a little bit like I'm sculpting him, just gradually refining the shape. And as I add the water to where the charcoal was, that's smudging down a little bit, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. It's perfect. Just adding a bit of shading. Those blank eyes just look weird, don't they? I will get to them more. Adding more shadow in now with the acrylic paint. Just deepening those shadows. And this little bit of shadow here just tucks the shape of the head in, really. Starts to round that head off. And then we need to add some of the markings in. But like before, I'm trying very hard not to cover over all of that paw from underneath. I want this to emerge from the paw. And there's one or two places we just need to make a little bit more solid. And dropping in some more shadows, I'm just putting a little bit more in behind the ear to make it stand out. Bringing some more of that pattern down onto the face. Bringing up the colour a little bit across the nose. It's a very hard decision to make as to how far you take this, whether you leave it half done or whether you take it just that little bit further, and I'm never quite sure what the answer is. I think on another one, just instead of just using the charcoal as well, I'd quite like to use some pens on them, just to scribble into it and see what happens really. Next thing I'm going to add is some mirror foils, and I've already put my mixtion down, which is the glue, and the glue it's a tacky glue, so it never fully dries, it stays just slightly tacky. And then you can take these beautiful mirror foil sheets, these ones are the Pebeo ones, and once the glue is as dry as it's going to get, so probably 45 minutes or so, then you can just rub over with the mirror foils and it just sticks to wherever you've left that glue. I've also got a silver one here, and they're proper shiny, they're lovely. Get a sheet of this, and I wanted it to be a mixture of the gold and silver because I quite like that combination. It's difficult to see at this angle what I'm putting down, but I will give you a close-up of it in just a minute. It just peels the foil part off the back of the sheet. Lovely stuff. So you can see you get these little marks where the mixture has... I've put the mixture on with a roller to give me this texture, and this is just where the foils have adhered to it, and when the light catches them they're just beautiful. How many times have I painted the top of this nose? But I'm going to do it again. Scratching with a stick as well with the end of the brush. The stick just has a point to it, so it gives a slightly finer scratch. Just refining some of those details. I get lost in this bit of detail. Once I've gone through the stage of building up the shapes and just setting everything out, this is the bit that's just fun. You're just diving in, getting involved in little bits of information. That's all quite good fun. Is anybody screaming at the video wanting me to do the eyes yet? I will get to them. It won't be long. Oh, here we go. The first thing I'm doing is I'm just adding some different coloured greens into the eyes themselves. So the eyes aren't a flat green. There's lots of different variants in them, just like in our eyes. There's lots of changes of colour. So I'm starting off with those. This cat's got quite beautiful, soft, sort of almost olive green eyes. Just blending that in a little bit. Just adding the same variety of colour to the other eye. It's a little bit yellower around the outside of the eye. I just needed those to dry off before I put the next bit in, because I want it to be a nice rich colour. I don't want it to blend into those greens, I want it to stand out. So here goes the pupil. And in the reference I was using, the pupil is round in this instance. Different animals have different shaped and sized pupils, but I was just going by the reference that I had. Now that looks different, doesn't it? Once you start to add that pupil, that starts to bring it to life. And then I'm adding some white here just to give me that shine, to make the eyes actually look wet. And the reflections generally match, so whatever you put into one eye, you're going to have to put into the other. Finally, she can see. So time to come back in for some more pattern and detail. Here we're looking at the muzzle. Adding a few more shadows into the chin, just in amongst the fur. With putting these on, you need to have them fairly well matched to each side. They're kind of symmetrical, so that's quite a tricky one to balance that out. Just measuring it up to make sure I get them equivalent on both sides. So coming back up and putting some more of the pattern on the top of the head. And although the paw from underneath is a lot less visible, when you look closely at it, it is all still there. So I'm quite pleased with that. So getting all that pattern in really does make a difference. So I've put some more shadows in, now I'm coming back in with the white just to brighten that. And there are times with acrylic that you do need to put a couple of coats of white on just to really build that layer up. I'm just using quite a fine brush here. It's probably a number 2 or 4 round. I think it was a number 2. And again, just drawing that white out to give me that feathering at the edge of the ear. Whilst I've got it, I'm just going to do some feathering on the other ear as well. Back to my little stick just to do a bit of the scratching to give some texture through that paint. I need to put some of the patterns along the leg, but I didn't want to go into as much detail as I had done on the face. I want the focus to be up on the face. So I need to do this, but I don't want to put it in, like I say, too much detail. Just really using this pattern as much as anything else to define where that limb comes through. So it's final little details really. And once I've done all of this bit, I'll sit back and I'll have a look. I will think about it for a while, and I may well come back in and fiddle a little bit, and you'll see in the end picture what I ended up fiddling. But it's pretty much doing what I have been doing. I might add a bit more foliage in the background, might add a bit more of the gold or the silver, but I don't want to lose that paw. And I've deliberately left her to fade into that background. And again, I didn't want to have a whole detail of the whole of the body, for example. I just wanted to let it drift away into the background. It's quite an interesting process, taking something that is an abstract painting and adding something representational to it. So I hope you've really enjoyed coming along on this journey with me. I love doing this, so I'd like to be doing some more of these. Tell me if you've enjoyed it too, please, and if you'd like to see more. I'll just let you watch the last few little bits and enjoy, and I will catch up with you very, very soon. Please don't forget to subscribe, it really helps my channel be more visible, and thank you for joining me.